Hello, everybody. I'm Brian Hyrick, and thank you for joining a webinar today featuring Algo with my colleague and cohort, Scott Farrell. Was kind enough to take time out of his busy day to join us today. I just want to give everyone a heads up. We want to make this as interactive as possible. So on the next slide there, Scott, it will show where to ask those questions. There's a question bubble in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We would be happy to address any of your questions that arise during the presentation at the end. Next slide. And for those of you who are not familiar with VoIP Supply, VoIP Supply has been the industry leader in open source communications distribution since 2002. Myself, Brian Hyrick, I've been with the company 14 years now, and we're much more than a website. We have one of the most experienced sales teams in the entire industry. With our combined years, we have over 60 of the industry's leading manufacturers, over 5,000 products, 5,000 SKUs in our catalog as well. Okay, next slide here. And what's really important through VoIP Supply is our partner program. The majority of the business through VoIP Supply does come through partners. And we have a bunch of benefits for you all, including a rental program, including Algo products. You could have a scenario where your customer doesn't want to put the capital up front. VoIP Supply is a really great leasing partner that can enable you to lease the equipment depending on credit application and size of the project. Okay, we can also fully provision and blind ship the units directly for you. So if you're ever on a scenario where you're not able to physically provision or program your Algo devices, VoIP Supply can do that for you, blind ship direct to your end client. As a part of that, we do have a portal where you can hold your own private stock, especially since the industry-wide has been running into stocking issues. VoIP Supply will allow you to purchase your stock. We will warehouse it for you, and then we can provision and ship as you see fit to your end clients. Also, we do have a refresh and reclaim program. For example, if you have some unwanted cyber data or Valcom units that you're looking to upgrade to some new Algo units, it's possible that VoIP Supply can buy those units back for you, offering you either a check or credit towards your new Algo order. So without further ado, I would like to pass the torch over to Scott Farrell of Algo Communications.
Thanks, Brian. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me back. So for those of you who are not familiar with Algo, we've been in business for a number of years. We were founded in 1968, and we've always been in telephony manufacturing, and we've evolved to an endpoint company that build SIP IP-based endpoints for visual notification, public address, and intercom, as you'll see as I go through the presentation. So I've been in the industry for quite a number of years. I'm working in multiple facets. I've been in engineering and design. I've been a hands-on technician in the field, and I've been with Algo now for 4 years. So what we're going to be covering today is what we're seeing in the industry that's driving people to migrate towards IP paging. And we'll do a solution overview. We'll get into a detailed product and technology discussion. We'll talk about some use cases, and we've got some new products that we've introduced, and I think they're quite compelling. And we'll spend some time talking about our new satellite technology and how this can all tie into solutions to address workflows for emergency notification, public address, and so on and so forth. So what we're seeing in the industry is critical safety and security is a huge push, and our product set ties in extremely nicely into a lot of the mass notification systems out there. We can build out localized emergency notifications, in schools and industry and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of really nice embedded feature sets in our product portfolio, but we play very nicely with companies like Synapse and SingleWire and 911 Inform, for instance. So critical safety and security are a huge driver. The fact that you're able to monitor, all the endpoints for in-service is key to a lot of organizations. Common infrastructure, that's driving wide adoption as well. A lot of the operational technology that organizations are receiving today, whether it be a camera or a speaker for paging, typically this equipment has an RJ45 connection on it, or it's a wireless connection into their network infrastructure. So we're seeing a lot of standardization on network topology, and that's driving a lot of adoption. The fact that our devices are all network configurable, so the devices are PoE, all of our devices you'll see are PoE devices or PoE plus devices that connect to the network. And there's a nice web-based interface to log into and manage any one of our devices. So you can easily make configuration changes from anywhere within your network, which reduces the number of truck rolls. So ease of management, you can supervise these endpoints, and of course, it just reduces the installation time as well. And then of course, we're UC compatible with all the major players out there. So all the hosted, whether it be, a Ring Central, or, in a via premise-based system, or even for that matter, MS Teams. Like, we can't register as a native SIP endpoint into Teams, but we support multicast on our devices, as you'll see. So we support features like Polycom Group Page or RTP Multicast that's available on the Yealink phone. So we can build out an entire paging system in a Teams environment without any SIP registration whatsoever. So we play very well in the UC space. So we're an open standard SIP device. From a vertical perspective, we're in any vertical that you can imagine. They're all growing exponentially. I'd say education is probably one of the fastest growing, but with COVID and all the logistics of people, all these logistics environments that are having to get packages and products out, we're seeing exponential growth in the warehouse space as well. And our products are well positioned in all of these verticals. One of the reasons that our product set is so popular is because all of the feature sets are embedded within our endpoint. So there's no head-end equipment for our solution. Basically, the products connect to the customer's PoE infrastructure, and then you leverage that LAN infrastructure and their UC environment to drive outcomes, right? So all of our, there is no amplifier on site because all of our speakers are self-amplified. There is no software to install on the customer's network because all of the feature sets are embedded within our endpoints. So it's very popular with large organizations that they can just lock us down into a VLAN. They don't have any common equipment other than the endpoints, of course, to put into their infrastructure. So we build a variety of speakers, and you'll see that I've got some new technology that we've come out with recently. So we build surface mount speakers. You'll notice that the 8190, it's a combination, right? It has an integrated clock, it has an integrated call button, it has optional strobe lights available to it, and it is a surface mount. So it was developed originally for the education space. So we built quite a variety of speakers. The 8186 horn speaker, so that's an outdoor rated speaker. And what we've recently done is you'll notice that our in-ceiling speaker, the 8188, just beside it, there's an 8198 PoE Plus ceiling speaker. And the reason we went with these PoE Plus capabilities in our speakers is to be able to deliver this new satellite technology that I'm going to show you. So with both our horn and our in-ceiling speaker, we've got new product SKUs. So the 8196 PoE Plus horn speaker, and then we have the 1196 satellite horn speaker, and then we have the 8198 SIP PoE in-ceiling speaker, and the 1198 satellite speaker. So what we're able to do now is with a single PoE Plus drop, you can drive basically a host speaker, and then you can easily daisy chain up to 3 additional speakers off of the host using a simple RJ45 patch cable, up to 50 feet of separation between each endpoint in a daisy chain fashion. So the 8198, that's the host, it's supervising all of those speakers that are attached to it. When you make an adjustment on the 8198 for volume, that's propagated to all of the other speakers that are attached to it. Significant cost savings for the customer. So now, in the past with our 8188 ceiling speaker, you would have had to run individual drops to each of those speakers. In this case now, it's a single drop. So picture a hallway in a school where you would have had to run 4 drops in a 100-foot hallway. You've got 25-foot spacing between your speakers. Now you can run a single drop and then just daisy chain them all the way down that hallway. So significant costs, easier to install. We've also done that with the horn speaker. And the reason we did that is, you get into these large logistics environments or these large manufacturing environments, you'll see a lot of back-to-back speaker scenarios or clustering of 4 speakers on a pillar. So in the past, again, the customer would have had to run 4 drops to drive those 4 speakers on a pillar. Now what we do, single PoE, and then they can easily, daisy chain up to 3 more satellite speakers off this. So again, there's that cost savings comes into play. The satellite speakers are not as expensive. So you'll notice down at the bottom, as you add more speakers, your cost, per unit really drops down. So the other thing is, as I said, the speaker that's the host is managing everything, right? So you'll notice that if you have a single 8196, and it's the same for the 8198 in the ceiling, standalone, it's a 16-watt speaker. And then when you connect 2, we'll share that power, right? So now you have 2 8-watt speakers. So that would have been equivalent to the 8186 standalone that we have. In the past, it was an 8-watt speaker. So now what we've done is with the PoE Plus, we double the power. So you connect 2, you're equivalent to the 8186 if there was 2 together. And then as you connect like a third, you'll drop down to 5.3 watts. And if you connect 4, you have 4 4-watt speakers. So yeah, it's a really nice solution. We're seeing wide adoption of this, and we're working on a lot of deployments right now where the customer has seen a significant cost savings. So what's nice about our endpoints, as I mentioned, they're open standard SIP registration. So they register into these environments, and they can register multiple times. There's multiple facets to these devices, right? So it could be a paging device, and the same unit can be a loud ringing device. So you would register it into your environment. You call an extension. That's going to be your page extension, and your voice is going to come out over the speaker. You wanted to have a loud ringing situation. So basically, you would SIP register, an extension for loud ringing. When that number is called, then the speaker will play, an audible ringtone, for instance. And of course, we support multicast, so we can send ringing and paging out to multiple endpoints. And we'll talk a little more about that as we go through. The fact that we are multicast capable, we can scale into thousands of units. And as I said, we have an intuitive web interface that allows you to log into our devices. I mentioned that the features are embedded, right? So we have a feature that's very popular, and you'll see a slide that depicts it more, but we have ambient noise capabilities within all of our endpoints. So all of our speakers, IP speakers, have embedded microphones. Yes, that can facilitate two-way communication, but it also allows the speaker to sense noise in the environment. So if you picture a large industrial environment, people are coming in the morning, or there's a shift change and the equipment is wound down. In the past with legacy infrastructure, when a page came out, it was probably set for the worst case scenario. So it was very uncomfortable and very loud. We don't do that with our technology. Our technology is set at a nominal value, and we would set it for the nominal quiet time. And then as noise gets introduced in the environment, we can dynamically self-amplify to address that. We have a gig of memory that's available on all of our endpoints, IP endpoints that are speakers, or the paging adapters that we'll be talking about today. So you can upload customized content, WAV files and tone files that you can trigger, to address different workflows. And we'll explore those a little further. And I just want to reiterate that, no common equipment required, no software to be installed. So customers absolutely love that. We also build visual, alerting devices. So in the past, it was the 8128. It was our white LED strobe light, and then you could have different lens covers, to change the color. And we were getting a lot of requests for like, hey, can you build a multicolored strobe? So we recently, in the last year and a half, delivered the 8138. So it's a multicolored LED strobe light. So it comes equipped with red, green, blue, and amber. And what's really nice about this strobe light is you can set it up to, do different flash patterns and colors based on the workflow that you might want to trigger. So for instance, if you go into a lockdown or a shelter in place, lockdown, we're going to flash red, shelter in place, we're going to flash amber, we're all clear, we're going to, flash green. Way of finding, right? So you've got an emergency situation, you can flash all your strobe lights red, make a public announcement that you don't want people to go towards the red, where you want people to go, you can flash green, for instance, and so on and so forth. The reason I have the 8190S here is because it also comes with the optional strobe lights. So in a classroom, this would be mounted, surface mounted, and you've got, as I mentioned earlier, the integrated call button and the clock with the line array of speaker, but you can also have the red, green, blue, amber strobes equipped on this device as well. So just again, open standard SIP, any of the devices that we're looking at, can register, and basically the strobe lights are very popular for, ring events or notification of page. We have long last LEDs equipped in there. They're rated to last, over 3 years. It's a high visibility, 360 degree, 180 degree visibility light that we propagate with our devices. They can be ceiling mounted or wall mounted. And again, these are all PoE devices. And this, what I'll mention too with this device, it's IP65 rated, so that means it can be installed in wet environments. I should have mentioned as well that the 8186 horn speaker and the new 8196 and 1196 horn speakers are wet rated as well. They can be installed outdoors. These are two of the paging adapters that we manufacture. So the Algo 8301 SIP paging adapter and scheduler. It's quite an interesting device, and it's become extremely popular. It's got a lot of feature sets that are embedded. We're going to get into a lot more detail about this device. With this device, it has a scheduling application that's on it. I mentioned there's a gig of memory on our devices. Very popular in schools, in industry, where they want to be able to do shift change. They can use this device to basically upload tone files and messages and then schedule those to play. There's an auxiliary input you can see there for music input, so this device can stream music onto a customer's network, which can play out over the speakers. This was originally designed, as an interface to legacy infrastructure. And we're going to get into a little more detail about that and why this device has become so popular with hosted players. The 8373, that's our SIP zone paging adapter, and it becomes more evident as we go through the slides. But basically, where you have physical equipment that would have controlled, physical zones, this device replaces that. So with this technology, we're able to replace a lot of the customer's legacy infrastructure, and that'll become more clear as we go through the slides. So here's a depiction of what the adapters are doing, right? So the 8301, you have a single amplifier. You can basically take a balanced line output, whether it be a twisted pair or an XLR connection into the amplifier. You would then call the 8301, and your voice would come out over that amplifier. And as you'll see, I'll show on some other examples, this device supports multicast. So we can do some interesting scenarios to tie legacy and new IP together. And then, as I was explaining, the 8373 is designed to replace a physical zone controller. So in those environments where you've got an amplifier that was interfaced to a zone controller that was driving physical runs of speakers, we basically take over those connections to those speakers, and we do the high-powered switching within our device. And you'll see why we do that in an upcoming slide. So again, these devices are designed to interface into legacy amplifiers. It eliminates the need for an ATA. So these are not ATAs. We're providing a balanced line 600 ohm output to the amplifier. And again, I mentioned that we can upload customized WAV files and so on and so forth. We have a relay input and output connection on the 8301, and you'll notice that we have that on all of our IP speakers as well. So these are the accessories that we manufacture, or a sample of them. And again, as I mentioned, there's relay inputs on all of our IP speakers or adapters, so you can tie volume control, call buttons. This audio plate was designed specifically for a school district where they wanted to be able to play music and have a handheld microphone. They wanted that so that people could easily turn on music, or a handheld microphone for the kids to be able to sing happy birthday. They didn't want to do that over a speakerphone. So this is installed in all of the offices. It's interfaced to an 8301 that has streaming enabled, and they basically just toggle this switch, right? So the point behind this is, if there's a widget that's needed out there and it's not available, it's something that we'll look at, and we'll actually maybe design and build something as we did here and commercialize it. There's smarts built into these devices. For instance, the volume control. So you've got that connected to a group of speakers. You turn down the volume in a gymnasium because they're writing exams, for instance, or you're in a boardroom and you've turned the meeting, the speakers off in the boardroom, but then somebody pushes, for instance, the 1202 for triggering an emergency, or somebody dials an extension to trigger an emergency, will actually override the mute on that 1204 volume control and play that emergency message. So there is some intelligence that are built into these accessories. But you don't need to necessarily use our accessories. You can have any type of a relay input, from any other logical equipment that can trigger an event, okay, on our devices. We build IP intercoms. So we build 4. The 2 on the left, the 8201 and the 8028, are audio only, very popular devices for us. As I had mentioned, we are an OEM manufacturer in the past. We've been in business for a number of years, and we've built branded product for others, white labeled from Nortel, Avaya, Diebold, other companies. So this for those of you that might be familiar with the Nortel or the Avaya equipment, the Norstar door phone or the BCM door phone would look very similar to you because they looked identical, the call stations, but they were digital, they were proprietary. So what we've done is we've built a PoE intercom, the 8201. You run an RJ45, you connect it to this device, you SIP register it, you press the call button, it calls a target attendant, they answer, you have two-way audio, and at the far end they can push a digit, which would activate normally open and normally closed capabilities that are built into this device. So it's an all-encompassed SIP PoE intercom. In a lot of cases, though, where you've got gates, or you would have had an analog or a digital door station going out somewhere where you may not necessarily easily be able to get an RJ45, we've built this two-piece solution. So the silver control box would go into the IDF or MDF. It would connect into your PoE network. And then we allow you to have a single pair connection all the way to the door station up to 1,000 feet away. So that just, it's great for retrofit. It saves having to run a wire. So that analog device or that digital device that was out there on a single pair, you can repurpose that wire. So the door controller has the normally open and normally closed capabilities built in it as well. And you can tie that into your door system to be able to have somebody push the digit 6 during that conversation and release the door. Same idea with the 8201. Press a digit, release the door. We build two devices that are audio and video. So the 8039 and the 8036. The 8039, as you can see, is a slim form factor. So it has a 180-degree view lens that has a keypad and a call button. And this device was designed this way because you have a lot of frontages that are all glass. So this would mount on the mullion. It is a PoE device, so it needs an RJ45 connection that comes to it. You would press that call button, and then that can initiate a call to a target attendant or play a custom wave file saying, for this department, press 1, for that department, press 2. You can put temporary codes in here, so somebody could come up and put, press star 1, 2, 3, 4, and that would activate the relay that's on board this device to open the door. So it too has normally open and normally closed capabilities that are built in it. The 8036 is the SIP multimedia interface. And what that is it's a graphic touch display that you can customize and have multiple pages. You can have directories, multiple buttons, and so on and so forth. And again, it supports video. It supports two-way video, actually. So you can actually portray the far end video. The video that we support, H.264. So if you have an H.264 appliance, then the video would be able to stream to that device. So that's the 8039, the 8036. Both these are PoE devices, and all of these intercoms are IP65 rated, so they can be outdoors in the environment. Now, what I'll talk about is the Algo 8063. So this is a fairly new device that we've introduced to replace a device that we had in the field. It was the 8061 IP relay controller. So the 8063 is designed to provide, a over-the-network release of a door. So you can call it secure door release. So basically, this device, I'm just going to jump back here to one slide here. So this 8036 does not have normally open, normally closed capabilities. The 8039 and the 8201 do. But if you were to pull this device off the wall and short the pins out in the back, you could actually release a door. So it depends on the customer's security posture, and that's what this device does. Is it provides a high degree of security in that this device would be installed on the network, and if somebody were to push the 8036 out in that lobby that you can see the image out there, it'll make the call to the target attendant, and when they answer and the person at the far end presses 6, that digit is passed to this device over the network, which will release the door securely. And again, this device is rated to work with the 8021, 8039, or the 8036. And what we did with this device is also allow you to have auxiliary inputs on it. You can see there's an input 1 and input 2. And now what that facilitates is the connection of, for instance, in this example, I'm showing the 1202 call button that is connected here. And basically what would happen is somebody can push a button, and then this device will take, action based on that input. And that can do, a broadcast of a message and multicast that out onto the network to a specific zone. Again, you can do that with a second button, and again, it's a separate message that you can broadcast to a different zone. So it's a nice device. It SIP registers into your environment and allows you to address several different workflows. So that's the new 8063 IP door controller with inputs. Since we're seeing such wide adoption of IP, I mean, you can get into a high school, you can get into an airport. We're doing some big projects with an airport in Florida, and in a terminal they have 500-600 speakers. This high school can have 400 or 500 speakers. So, I mentioned that we have a web interface into each one of the devices, which is fantastic. But this device, when you can put it on a customer subnet, it gives you a single pane view of all the Algo devices that are on their network. So they basically can log into the device from this device, and they basically can manage it from there. And the other thing that this device does is it allows the customer to be able to monitor all of their devices for in-service. So if somebody were to unplug a device, this device can actually send out an email to an IT team, or so you can then be proactive in doing corrective action. The other thing that we're doing with the 8301 is we support like mass, with DHCP options. We can push out config files to our devices. And in the past, the customer did that with a TFTP server and HTTPS server. What we're doing is we're embedding all of that in this device. The other thing we're doing is allowing you to be able to do a drop down and say, okay, well, I want to take these 10 speakers and I want to change the zone that they're in. You're going to be able to kind of push that config out to a group of speakers without having to kind of log into them individually. So a lot of flexibility in managing the infrastructure with a simple endpoint that gets deployed within the subnet. So you need one of these per subnet. So let's talk about legacy infrastructure. So I run into many customers. I take care of North America for Algo from a strategic perspective. So I work with a lot of integrators, a lot of channel partners, and I work with a lot of very large customers. And a lot of them have 70-volt infrastructure in place, and they don't necessarily want to replace that. Why we've become so popular with the host providers is this, right? So if in the past an ATA would be used to connect into the customer's existing telephony equipment that was on site driving that amplifier, and that works fine, right? The ATA, SIP register it, make a call, you're going to call that amplifier and you're working. We do things differently. As I mentioned, we're not an ATA. Right? We provide a balanced line output right to the amplifier. So you can see in this picture, I've eliminated some infrastructure. That telephone answering module is gone, and I've also eliminated the need for an FXS, right? That device, the ATA was providing an FXS to, a station port basically to that answering module. So now we're providing a balanced line output right into the amp. And we provide wideband. So all of our devices are wideband for improved speech intelligibility. That gets delivered out onto the network and to the devices that we're interfaced to. So what we're able to do, with paging today is, there is no need for common equipment. That's why this is so popular, right? SIP registration to a device. So you take one of our devices, connect it to the network and SIP register it, you call the device and you're able to page. Now, I've worked with a lot of hosted providers, and they've been working with customers that are migrating off of their legacy infrastructure. And I worked with multi-sites, 500-600 locations, and they never did put paging into, say, a work bay because they had to buy common equipment to do that. And as these customers are migrating over to these hosted environments and these IP-based environments, now it's just an endpoint and a drop. So it's amazing how much adoption there is, where it's becoming a standard in a lot of these organizations where, hey, I can easily add paging now, and they do it. So wide adoption. Here's another reason that we're so popular with all the hosted players. So I talked about that ATA and how it interfaces to the customer's legacy infrastructure. In the past, with digital phone systems, there was a lot of proprietary capabilities within those phone systems. So if you take, for instance, the North Star or the IP Office, Cisco, the single wire, they were able to page their phones and the amplifiers at the same time. And what happened is they were migrating over to these hosted environments. ATAs were being deployed and interfaced to the that existing legacy telephony equipment, and they were able to call that ATA and page. But why there's a red X beside that phone is because now the ATA, a lot of them do not support multicast. So now they've lost that proprietary capability that was in their old system. So now they had to do 2 calls, one to page the amplifier and then another paging vent to page their sets, which was not going over very well. And that's why the 8301 really filled a nice gap for them. So what it did is it provided the balance line output to the amplifier. But the fact that the 8301 supports multicast, when I call that IP device, that 8301, I provide the balance line output, but I can also multicast that out onto the network, and I can hit the phones that support multicast. And I support RTP multicast, so that's your YA links, your audio code, some of the new Cisco hosted phones, and we also support Polycom group page, right, which is the embedded feature within the Polycom group of phones. We understand that as well. So that's one of the reasons we were so popular. We were able to multicast out onto the network, and we can augment the customer's environment where they might have dead spots, or take an education example. They don't have maybe the money to replace all of those common speakers in the hallways, so they would leave the amplifiers in place, drive all the hallway speakers, and then they would put IP speakers in the classrooms. We could tie all that together. And then you'll notice in the bottom picture, all of those boxes don't appear. And that's because all those features that were, physical boxes on the customer shelf in the past are embedded within our endpoint. So what we're able to do, with multicast is, what I'm depicting here is a single SIP call. I'm hitting an Algo 8301 paging adapter, and it's basically a broadcast device, and it's sending my voice out onto the network, which is then being replicated to the 8188, the 8186, that RTP phone. It's getting sent to the other adapters, which is coming out on those legacy amplifiers. And what's nice about this is I can slice and dice this any way I want. We have 50 multicast zones available on any of our devices. So I could have that 8301 answer and say, press 1 for amplifier 1, press 2 for amplifier 2, and so on and so forth, right? Press 4 for page all. Or if I wanted to have, for instance, like speed dials on my phones, I could SIP register these zones as well. So it's very flexible. I could have multiple SIP calls going to that 8301, and then it would, page amplifier 1, amplifier 2. So there's multiple ways that we can do that. That's great for customers that are migrating away from legacy, and they've got a lot of amplifiers. They can do it in a phased manner with our technology. What I'd like to show is this solution component slide, right? So basically, our products are building blocks, and what you're going to do is you're going to use SIP, you're going to use the customer's network, their LAN infrastructure, to be able to multicast. As I said, we have inputs on all of our devices that you can connect our accessories to, or any input for that matter. I talked about the scheduling application, and all of our devices subscribe to NTP. So our clocks on the 8190, everything's always in sync because we support NTP on our devices, network time protocol. And what's exciting is you'll notice that there's an API arrow there. So we support the RESTful API suite now on our devices. So a lot of mass notification players, but even customers are writing their own code to be able to send URL messages to our devices to trigger events. So it's a very open standards product set that's easily deployed and manipulated, as I said, with the network UC infrastructure and now the RESTful API suite. A lot of people are under the impression that you have to register everything in an environment, and that's not the case, right? So what I can do, and what I'm depicting here, is I could drop in a speaker, and I could call that speaker and answer it. I could have another 100 speakers out here that my voice is going to come out on, but they have no idea about that SIP proxy, that SIP server. It's just the single registration, and then I can basically broadcast to many devices. Very popular for SIP ringing. So if the platform supports multiple SIP registrations, you may be able to do that, where you basically have the same extension registered into your server. You call that extension, and then both devices would ring. If that's not the case, you can SIP register the device individually, and basically put them in a ring group. If your platform supports subscribe notify, then there is no registration required. We can just monitor an extension with the subscribe notify capability. Same idea for the visual ringing. So everything I just described, for ringing audibly, we can do visually as well. This just depicts that ambient noise capability I was talking about. It's extremely popular in a lot of organizations. So you deploy our speakers, nominal value. You can see in the picture up above, it's quiet. You guys got some boxes on the rollers. It's not that loud. And then all of a sudden, if a forklift comes into that area, it's working in the area, we'll detect the noise in that environment. We'll self-amplify to address the noise. And as I mentioned, that microphone also facilitates two-way communication in that you can call any one of our speakers and have a talk-back session. That's very popular in the education space, of course, with classrooms. This is the scheduling application that I spoke of. So it's embedded in the 8301. So you can see that there's a lot of feature sets that are embedded in these endpoints. So I can build out a schedule, and then I can just trigger that. In this case, there's no SIP registration, required whatsoever. What was kind of interesting, and unfortunately is still happening, is because of COVID, I have a lot of organizations that are buying this device, and they basically build a schedule, and this device just goes off every 15 minutes, and it just reminds people, hey, that they have to do their social distancing and so on and so forth. So that's become quite a popular use case. So the customer needs to just buy, this $385 device, put it on their network, no SIP registration, build out their schedule, and then it'll just automatically play those messages, multicast them out onto the network, or it'll play out to an amplifier that might be connected to this device as well. So as I mentioned, we can do a lot of things that are embedded. We play nicely with mass notification solutions, but we have a lot of embedded capability where we can SIP register this device multiple times. So there's 10 emergency alerts that are built into the 8301, and leveraging the customer's dialing plan, I can trigger events to take place. So in this instance, they're showing dial 900, and then I'm going to do a lockdown. So that'll broadcast onto the speakers, and it's flashing the strobe red. I can then call 909, for instance, to cancel that emergency, and then I could call another extension like 901, to flash green and play a public address that we're all clear. This just depicts that capability where I said we have relay inputs in our devices. So I've got a 1202 that's connected here, and if I press that, once I connect to the speaker and I log into the graphic interface for that speaker, I basically tell that speaker, okay, well, when that button's pushed, I want you to do this, a multicast event, or set up a call to target, play a WAV file. So, there's different ways of configuring this. I can set it up to make a SIP call, set up a two-way audio path, for instance, between a couple of devices. And as I mentioned, right, we can take a relay input, from other logical equipment. So AEDs are becoming extremely popular in public places and schools. So they alarm locally. A lot of them have strobe lights on them, but they also fire a relay. So what can happen in this case is this could be wired into the 8301 that's SIP registered. It receives that relay, it makes a phone call. Basically it can play a WAV file to a security desk saying that the AED was just removed out of the second floor, at the school, for instance, and then they can respond accordingly. Or we can have it do a multicast, message in the office, for instance. So lots of capability with our stuff to address workflows. So mass notification solutions are very, very popular out there and becoming more and more popular. I mean, with the adverse weather conditions, just all the different things that are taking place in the world today, you're seeing a wide adoption of being able to get the message out quickly. We do that very nicely locally, but when you want to be able to, I'll give you an example. I've worked with school districts where if they put a school into lockdown, the next 5 schools within a certain radius of that lockdown school have to go to a hold and secure. So we don't necessarily do that, but we work really well. Like for instance, with Synapse and Formicast, they certified our product. I've just worked recently on a big project with a company called 911 Inform, where they standardized on our product. I've worked with a company called Cova Corporation that do crash systems at airports. They leverage all our product sets. So they're in control, right? So they basically, when they trigger an event, for instance, an adverse weather event, then they can take over and basically play a message on our speakers, flash strobe lights. In addition to that, these systems can do SMS, they can do email, they can do all kinds of additional things, right? And they can have different channels feeding into it. But the beautiful thing about our product set is we can be controlled by them, but all those really nice embedded feature sets that I talked about are still available to you as well. So you can really get into some interesting workflows with all these different systems that are available to you. So my name is Scott Farrell, as I mentioned earlier. So I'm the strategic accounts representative for ALGO throughout US and Canada. You can reach out to me at any time if you have questions. Our support organization is available to you. That's free of charge. They operate from 7:30 to 3:30 PST, Monday to Friday. You can always reach out to them. Very talented group of people, know a lot more than I do, and they'll get right in there and help you. And I'll turn it back over to Brian.
Scott, thank you so much, and awesome job as always. I do see a couple of questions here. One is, I believe they were referring to the distances between the speaker and the slave. It's about 50 feet. They were talking about the distance from the switch to the original 8198.
Yeah. So that would be a standard LAN connection, whether it be a PoE or a PoE plus. So your standard 300-foot connection. So you'd have your host. It could be up to 300 feet away from your network switch, and then basically your first daisy chain speaker via RJ45 Cat5 or Cat6 cable. You can be another. That would be 50. Then you can go another 50 and another 50. So theoretically, 300 and then 150. Your furthest speaker could be kind of 450 feet away. So yeah, it's a standard network drop for the initial connectivity to basically the host speaker. If you're beyond that, I work with a company, and I'm pretty sure you guys do as well. It's called FiBridge. They make LAN extenders. They can be put onto a customer's untwisted pair, and they can extend a PoE drop on a single pair up to 2,000 feet away. So that's some interesting technology that's available as well. These long LAN extenders available.
Absolutely. And I have another one here as well, Scott, that I can actually answer. What is the preferred platform for Algo? Anything OpenSIP. Algo will work with any OpenSIP platform, be it anywhere from free switch to free PBX and everything in between. So yeah, anything OpenSIP, or even if you're not connecting to your PBX, remember Polycom and Yealink, you can actually do multicasting with. So absolutely. So if there's any other additional questions too, here's my contact information. Again, I've been with VoIP Supply for 14 years and have witnessed firsthand the success of Algo. Phenomenal company, phenomenal equipment, support, can't say enough. Certainly the industry leaders in IP paging. So anything you need, shoot me an email, give me a call. If I can't answer it, we'll bring Scott in, and he certainly has all the answers. So we're happy to help you out and work with you on your projects. Scott, do you have anything else you'd like to add today?
No, thanks for setting this up, Brian. And again, yeah, we're here to help you. Please engage with Brian, and we'll help you with any design questions you have. If you're out there and you're talking to a customer and they have legacy infrastructure in place, just take some pictures of it, take note of the model numbers, and so on and so forth. We've done a lot of these integrations in the past, so we've got a lot of information that we can pass on to you on how to connect these systems, what you're going to need to be able to interface to them. Do you need an 8301 for each one? Is it an 8373, for instance? So you get a lot of those questions, so feel free to reach out at any time, and we'll help you with that. No problem at all. If you have customers where you're doing, they have a significant space and you're not quite sure on, how you would deploy speakers, reach out to us. We'll engage with your customer with you, and we just, we need information, right? We need floor plans, we need ceiling heights, we need, where they want coverage, but, we'll have that conversation with you and your customer, and we'll help you make sure that you get the right, solution for them.
Absolutely. And Scott, thank you for taking the time out of your day. I know you're busy, and everyone who joined, we really appreciate and value your time too. So that being said, if you want to review this, you can get the slide decks from me or our marketing team. We'll send this out as well. So greatly appreciate your attendance and your participation today. Thank you very much, everyone. And until next time, we'll talk to you later.